wasn't really any place for disagreement. I was an only child, basically. I had two half brothers who were much older than me. Yeah, I don't know in my family that there was really any place for disagreement at all.
They're not really big fans of disagreement.
No, my parents are pretty. They're rather conflict avoidant. So yeah, I pretty much just learned to turn away from disagreements and find different company, which was probably not good for me. But I think that it also like brought a sort of like pretty strong independence and sort of just keep moving down my own path kind of thing. So not all bad, but and then now, no, where are we at with this? So so obviously we're a couple, obviously we're married, as it turns out.
Oh my God, we are?
Yeah, we are. So so we're married, and we also run a business together, which is new. And it's not so much a business as a lifestyle. It's sort of it's sort of 16 hours a day, every day. So we write and produce films and podcasts and animations and things like this, interviews. We write for popular science magazines. We're just sort of out there. So we have this project called Demystifying Science. And so, yeah, we are constantly disagreeing. So I'm still learning how to do that, as it turns out. And it's interesting. It's interesting because you can't have a democracy with two people, right? So we are constant. Well, first of all, we would love to discover that perfect third mate for our team, at least for our business, for our business. But you know, that's not to be rushed. But that would certainly make things easier, because there's a lot of things that are just come down to preference and you know, just really aesthetic taste and things like that, which you can't really, there's no way to really argue for your preference on something. It's just like, well, I like this better, you know.
Wow.
So those are probably the most difficult disagreements, and I think those usually just have to result in like some sort of generosity on one or both of our behalfs, because there's no way to really compromise on aesthetic choices and stuff. So we just take turns, and
wow,
yeah, that's an interesting one. So
yeah.
All right. Well, you just generated lots of questions in my mind. Stas, let's hear from you first.
So I grew up both less all over the place and kind of more all over the place. So I was actually born in the Soviet Union, and then we emigrated to Israel during the first Gulf War. And then after a few years in Israel, we moved to Canada. After a few years in Canada, we moved to the United States. And then we lived in California. I went to college in California. Then I moved to New York. I moved to San Francisco, moved back to New York. And now we're in Portland. And so I've been kind of like, it's the formative years of childhood were spent in immigration, right? So before I was 10, we had immigrated 3 times.
Wow.
Right? And I mean, like, it's crazy. I think about it now, and to do it once is astonishing, right? Like, we think about moving, we're like, maybe we should move to Canada. Things here seem pretty screwed up. And we're like, oh, it'd be so hard.
And far away from everybody we know.
And far away from everybody we know. But it's like, you know, my parents left the Soviet Union and they were like, we are never going to see anyone that we love ever again, because the wall is up, the Soviet Union is closed, this is it. And they just basically jumped off the cliff. And then they did it 2 more times.
Wow.
I know. And so disagreement, we had a big family. So my grandma lived with us. And so it was me, my brother, my sister, my grandma, my mom, and my dad. And I don't think that like even an hour passed without there being a really vehement disagreement about something.
Like, to this day.
To this day, yeah. I mean, it's just like everybody has such a strong personality. There is such a high standard of what is good and how to perform, and the standard to which conversation is held, the standard at which ideas are examined. Like Shiloh's encountered this as he's been brought into the fold of my family. Like they're very stringent people, and it's beautiful because on one hand it's like you put your ideas down in front of them and it's just this frenzy of, you know, why is this idea a terrible idea? And so you get really comfortable with disagreements. You come to constantly be encountering the world through the lens of the fact of like, well, of course people are going to disagree with you. Like your ideas aren't good, your ideas are okay. And by putting them in front of other people and having them be interrogated and having them be challenged, that's how you'll get to a good idea. And so I think that we come from very different backgrounds in that sense, where I've sort of been like very scrappy my entire life, because that's the context of family.
Wow. So many questions, but Shilo, was that intimidating or difficult to you at first?
Her family?
No, that style that she has learned from her family.
Well, it was kind of welcome too. I mean, you got to understand, like, I met Nastya when I was at the end of my 20s, basically. So I'd kind of been on my own, and I basically had spent that whole decade playing in bands and like kind of like leading my own ship everywhere I went. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it was really cool to find somebody that I not only really admired, but also like felt challenged by at all times in a productive way.
At all times.
At all times, yeah. In a way that was productive, you know? And so I think that's what you really need, especially like after you get through that sort of like uncertain like 20s phase of your life where you're just like trying to like prove that you can, you know, do something. And then at some point you're like, all right, like I need to actually start refining like these ideas I have and like really like try to poke holes in them. And you sort of like acquire a hunger for improvement. Yeah, I don't know what a better way to put it is. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't yeah, this was voluntary, right? It wasn't
so you're highlighting not difficulty with it, which it would have certainly, I'm sure, challenged you a lot, but it probably made Stas very attractive to you. I mean, that's probably one of the main reasons that you said, I want to marry this woman.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I love, yeah, we're never short on conversation. I mean, I think that's like one of the most important things probably, I don't know about for a business partnership, but probably is just the ability to really get into ideas and never get, you know, to the bottom of them necessarily. Because kind of like when you're at the bottom of an idea, it's like you kind of lose steam, right? Especially for creative stuff. It's like, all right, well, we did that, you know. But if you're always like kind of like chewing on things and coming up with new stuff, I mean, it has its downsides too. Like we can definitely like get into like an idea and like not let it go. Like we can just chew something to death like all day long, and we're like, are we getting anywhere with this at some point? But I'd much rather have that problem than like the problem of just like
silence.
Yeah, just sort of like, okay, and then just so yeah, it's never lacking excitement around here.